to the U.S., and China has been the missing piece. I was going to be in Switzerland to negotiate with the Swiss. Turns out the Chinese team is traveling through Europe, and they will be in Switzerland also. So we will meet on Saturday and Sunday.
The U.S. and China are talking trade again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Perseverance Mindset Podcast. I am your host, as always, John Zadzura. Welcome again to our famous broadcast studio at the Dialogue Den. We're diving into one of the most consequential weekends in global economic diplomacy. Right now, top U.S. and Chinese officials are gathering in Geneva, Switzerland, over the weekend for a series of high-stakes negotiations aimed at easing the worst trade tensions we've seen in over a decade. And you better believe that we're keeping you informed of that every step of the way, Perseverance Pioneers. We will be here to walk you through all the developments on it. So let's start by setting the scene once again. This isn't just a routine diplomatic visit. These are creations at a highly crucial time between the world's two biggest economies, massive behemoths that run the table of the world economy in a lot of ways. The stakes couldn't be higher. Hundreds of billions and trillions in trade, strained supply chains, and a global market on the edge. On the American side, we've got U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and his representative as well, Jameson Greer, leading the charge. On the Chinese side, they have China's leading economic strategist and, of course, on behalf of President Xi Jinping, President Xi. And they'll be meeting from May 9th to May 12th. While no sweeping deals expected just yet, Secretary Bessent has stressed that it could mean clear de-escalation and a focus that meeting could intercept and advance other meetings to discuss trade. That means dialing down the temperature, dialing down the tension, and reestablishing communication between the world's two biggest economies. Exactly what needs to happen at this point. Exactly. I think many people are frustrated because we're not seeing deals start coming now. But these negotiations take time. These are things that take years to even develop. So the fact that these talks are happening so shortly after tariffs and all of that craziness and all of that uncertainty is happening is a good thing. Now, these meetings are unfolding right under the shadow of intense economic combat in this financial Cold War that we've named. Right now, the U.S. is enforcing tariffs as high as 145%. You heard that number correct. 145% on Chinese goods. And China, they've retaliated, no question about that, with tariffs up to 125%. This is a trade freeze that hurts a lot of people. Now, this is the total uncertainty of this is what the scary part is. And yes, it affects everyday consumers as well. With everything going on, we're totally uncertain of what is going to happen. But we're rooting for our team. We're rooting for our president. We're rooting for things to change positively. Will it happen? We will yet to see. But never count out the USA. Never. And here's where it gets interesting. The tension and the tariff piece of this. There's a lot of back and forth between who actually initiated the talks. I don't think who actually cares who initiated the talks, as long as they're started and there's official dates and times set to start talking about this, or an initial meeting to get us to the table, to get us in China to the table. Now, meanwhile, China's Ministry of Commerce says that it was the United States who sought the meeting. Why does that, again, like we said, why does that matter? Because in the world of geopolitics, optics are everything. This debate isn't just about pride, it's about power. And again, who will run the global trading table for the next 50 to 100 years in this financial Cold War? Perseverance Pioneers. Now, the president has made it clear he will not reduce tariffs as a precondition. And to be honest, why should he? As a precondition, we have to come to the table, be willing to do things, and be willing to also alleviate their part of the tariffs as well. So he believes the U.S. has finally gained some leverage in the economic arena, and he's not letting go of it easily. And from China's side, they flat out said they will not compromise on their core positions. Valid statement. They've accused the U.S. of creating serious negative impacts on the global economies through excessive tariffs. This isn't just diplomatic language, it's a standoff with real-world consequences. Again, just last month, Chinese exports plummeted, with predictions suggesting a 70-cent decline in shipments to the U.S. in 2025 alone. It's only 5 months into the year of 2025, and already a 77% decline for the Chinese economy. Now, as a part of we've mentioned in other episodes, this is a form of detente, who reached out to who first. Let's pull the lens back for a minute. Let's dial back. If you've been following our show, our Perseverance Mindset podcast, right here from our famous Dialogue Den, then you know this weekend's meeting's not happening in a vacuum. Over the past few episodes, we've discussed this. We've laid the groundwork for this, for today's critical moment. We just were informed of this today that the two countries and two nations will meet this weekend. Before that, we were walking you through the history of the U.S. tariff policy, the effects of NAFTA, the devastating effects of NAFTA, the long arc of America's shifting trade posture. We explored the China-U.S. trade war began as a pushback to unfair subsidies and to intellectual property theft. All of our Perseverance pioneers are well aware of the IP theft that China has been doing to our business community for decades, for years. And again, in our last episode, we were basically saying, are we witnessing the art of the trade deal because of the conversations currently taking place? Now, this weekend in Geneva may offer the first glimpse of that answer. Because here's the truth. It isn't just about the United States and China. It's about the balance of who runs the table of global trade and global power for the next 50 to 100 years, more than that. Every nation, whether they're exporting microchips, soybeans, semiconductor, is watching. The EU is watching. India is watching. Vietnam's watching. Latin America's watching. They are recalibrating their supply chains as we speak in real time, depending on whether the U.S. and China rebuild the trust or, again, just deepen the divide. I don't think anyone wants that. But if these talks succeed, and if these talks do succeed, in the middle of all the uncertainty in the U.S. markets and all of the protests currently breaking out in China all over the product and the ports of the items that can't leave China's ports, they're having massive protests in the country because people are losing their jobs, the ports are backed up, and there's just massive protests throughout the whole country. Something has to be done. So if these talks do succeed, if they lead to a genuine realignment of trade, lower tariffs, fair rules, enforcement mechanisms that work with guardrails, then all this economic pain, all of these years of uncertainty might just have served a purpose. That's the question that many are asking. Was it truly worth it? Was the financial Cold War in this year of 2025, the inflation, the disruption to global supply chains, was it all of a strategic investment of a fairer, more sustainable global trading system, a form of détente 3.0, if you want to go that far? Because if Geneva becomes the turning point through all this, if both nations walk away ready to rebuild this trade relationship, or just walk away in general with mutual respect and transparency, then yes, just yes, maybe it was. But if it doesn't, let's stress this, Perseverance pioneers, but if it doesn't, if these talks just go right to hell, if they break down, if all the nationalism out there and mistrust continue to harden, then we could be facing a full-scale decoupling of the two biggest economies in the world. No one wants to see that. No one listening to this call today, to this episode, wants to see that. I am sure of it. Like our position, hate our position. Like the president, don't like the president. I don't think anybody wants to see the decoupling of the world's two biggest economies. Again, something that could reshape everything from the price of food to energy to the future of artificial intelligence, military alliances. So yes, Perseverance pioneers, this weekend is about more than tariffs. It's about who gets to write the rules of the 21st century economy after a global pandemic, and whether those rules can still be negotiated at the table rather than tested on the battlefield, which no one wants, as many wars are currently out and breaking out. We've seen Russia-Ukraine during the last administration. We've seen Israel-Hamas during the last administration. Right now, we have India and Pakistan getting into scuffles and getting into something that could also break into a larger conflict. So what does this mean for all of us? What does this mean, like talking about, what's it say for the markets? So Wall Street is zoned in on this meeting like a hawk, like a fly on you know what. So investors want clarity. Supply chains want stability, and central banks want predictability. Even if no deal is signed, any signal of warming relations or a softening tone of rhetoric could give markets a short-term boost. But if the talks collapse or tensions get much, much higher, which is likely, again, brace for more volatilities in equities, commodities, and global currencies. In a moment where countries are navigating slowing growth, inflationary pressure, and domestic political shifts, there's a lot riding on how these days unfold over the weekend. So in addition to what Wall Street is honed in on, what does it mean for us, folks like you and me, the American consumer, the person out there going to work every day, looking at their 401ks, looking at their bank accounts? So why should you, a perseverance pioneer, care? Maybe you're scrolling through this video looking for favorite music on YouTube. Maybe you're scrolling through this video just trying to learn how to do a do-it-your-home project. It's about the rules of engagement, because if this just isn't about tariffs and GDP percentages, in a global economy where every decision made at these tables in Geneva impacts your purchasing power, your job security, and quite frankly, our national resilience. Think about it. If tariffs continued unchecked, and we walk away from China, China walks away from us, the decoupling occurs, we'll likely see expensive everything from electronics to pricier household goods, increased pressure on small businesses. They're already walking a tightrope. This is about sovereignty, supply chains, and the soul of international cooperation, as well as making a better set of rules for the USA China relationship. And you know, all of our perseverance pioneers, that as always, we'll be watching closely and keeping you, our loyal perseverance pioneers, informed on every step of this historic weekend. So live from the Dialogue Den, this is the Perseverance Mindset Podcast. Stay sharp, stay resilient, and stay tuned.